Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome to episode number 92 of the Batman on Film Social Hour. I am the founder of Batman on Film, Bill Ramey. Did you know I'm the founder of Batman on Film, Pete Verra, senior BOF contributor.
I thought that it was some guy on a blogger.
On a blog, like the old blogger.
Yeah, I thought it was one of those
platform.
Guys. Yeah,
There's been many a wannabe. There's only one Batman on Film, sir.
there's been a clay face or two.
Sure. Speaking of which, so let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees play today, right?
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
You told me that they're playing at 4 p. I went and looked, 4 p.m. Eastern, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so is this the rubber game? This is the last game of the series?
Elimination.
Okay.
This is elimination.
All right. So, number one, how you feeling about it?
I'm nervous as all hell.
Okay. Understandable. I get it. I'm a sports fan. And so where will you be watching this game? Do you go to a sports bar or the house,
I'll probably be watching it at work on my computer.
Oh, you're going to be working during that.
I work as Ryan Lauer calls it, second shift.
Okay.
I say I work nights.
Okay. Or we'd call it evenings. You work evenings, right? Not graveyard. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, you should have had a case of the Yankee flu today.
I thought about it, but it'll kind of keep my emotions in check, you know.
Okay.
I'll have to be a little bit more contained, which is probably a good thing, because usually I scream and yell a lot in October. You know,
okay.
Games in June, I just kind of I watch and I process it, but in October things are a little bit different. It's higher stakes, obviously.
Sure.
So
okay, just want to get that in. So this would be considered an old school kind of sort of emergency show when some news breaks that seems worthy of firing up the mic and doing a short podcast to discuss. Well, this is one of those moments because yesterday the Hollywood Reporter dropped a story. I think it was Boris Kitt is the author behind this piece, if I'm not mistaken.
As reliable as it gets.
Yes. And talks about what the plan is.
Oh, the plan.
What the plan is, I guess, so to speak, the reset of DC on Film, yet another reset. Now, I'll be honest. The only thing I'm vested in and have any real interest in, honestly, is the Batman stuff from Matt Reeves. And of course, Robert Pattinson and Colin Farrell and the rest of the gang. That I'm completely vested in. That is the focus of Batman on Film, the website. However, when it comes to the other DC stuff, I'm just at the point where it's like, okay, if it happens, it happens. And if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And I'm not going to lose any sleep over anything anymore. So, yeah, there's stuff. I mean, like, I really liked Peacemaker. I liked the Suicide Squad from James Gunn. I'm looking forward to anything James Gunn does, DC, for Warner Brothers. But, like, Cavill being back as Superman, if they finally, I beat the drum on that to where I'm not going to beat it anymore about a Man of Steel 2, some sort of, soft
It's crazy.
reboot.
It's going to be like 10
Sequel.
years. It's going to be over 10 years, to get a sequel.
For
to that
sure.
movie.
It'll be over 10 years by the time they get it up and running.
Yeah.
But, I'm like, if
It took them 10 years to announce it.
that happens, that happens. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I'll just let you to talk about all the other DC stuff real quick before we get into the Batman universe. Just give a recap and your thoughts on what was said in the THR.
Yeah.
article.
I mean, similar to you, the Batman is my priority. I am a Batman first fan, right? He is my bread and butter. He's my favorite fictional character of all time. So, Matt Reeves universe is the crown jewel, and everything else is just the icing on the cake. But, like you said, Man of Steel 2, James Gunn has got a secret project in the works. Wonder Woman 3, they've announced that they are working on a script for Flash 2 as well, which I found interesting considering everything that goes on with that movie and the news that dropped about Ezra yesterday as well. So,
that dude's going to get, he's going to get that. Well, I'll say that dude, that character is going to get recast. That's
so
pretty
be
obvious.
I have no attachment to Ezra Miller.
No.
To be honest with you, it's
Yeah.
Barry Allen, the Flash, is my first priority. Whoever plays him is, it is what it is. So it was all good news. It was positive news. I enjoyed it. It gets me excited. I did read that article. I did get pumped up, but I can't lie. This isn't the first time that Warner Brothers and DC has went to a trade, told me what they had plans for.
Mm-hmm.
Some people didn't like the last time they announced their plans and claimed there weren't any plans, but we can't get that excited because, some of these things are going to happen and some of them aren't.
Yeah.
If the Flash is successful, that movie, I believe, will happen. We know Wonder Woman 3 is going to happen. Man of Steel 2, we have to see if that's ever going to happen. Whatever Cavill has, maybe they can't come to an agreement. I don't know. But it's in the early stages. They did mention Roven would produce it. He was a producer of Man of Steel. We've been here before. They've announced things, we've gotten excited, and we've only gotten a few of them. So it's all wait and see still. But I appreciate being in the know. I appreciate all the information, and it's all good news on my end. I'm very happy. But the Batman is the priority, and like I said, everything else is just the icing on the cake.
My take real quick is it'll be interesting to see how the Flash, if and how the Flash changes anything, because that's what it was supposed to do. And apparently, from what I'm told, they're not altering the way it ends, which I'll just leave it at that. They're not, so that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And I will hope that if Cavill returns, that they do indeed do a Man of Steel 2. I'd like it to be some sort of reboot. I mean, would Amy Adams come back? I mean, things like that. Some of the supporting cast, who knows?
I kind of get the feeling that this is a Halloween 2018 scenario where it's a sequel to Man of Steel. And there's a possibility, because we don't know what's going to happen after Flash, but they ignore the events that have happened after Man of Steel and just do a direct sequel to that movie. I feel like Halloween 2018 paved the way for that type of storytelling, because that movie was very
explain
successful.
What you mean.
Well, Halloween 2018 is a sequel to John Carpenter's Halloween movie, the original Halloween.
Yeah.
It ignores basically 3 other timelines that have spawned out of that movie and a reboot series. So I think that they can just, and you've said it in the past and many others, Man of Steel teed up perfectly Man of Steel 2 with Welcome to the Planet and The Smile.
Yeah.
And I think that the creative team that ever, takes this project on can do that. I think they can just make a sequel to Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Ignoring the events of BVS, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
And, they can take it from the reboot of the franchise of The Flash and go forward.
I would say you do that way. not because I do not like BVS and that period of DC on film, but because it really frees up the filmmaker. He's not beholden to really anything other than Superman's
First
origin,
film.
you know, and which again, and you're right, I've said it teed it up perfectly, and I've said for years they dropped the ball by doing BBS and not making a proper sequel to Man of Steel, proper Superman sequel.
And I don't think this will be confusing for fans or the general audience, because we've seen timelines change in other franchises like X-Men. You've now seen legacy castings happen all over the MCU where characters have come back. So I feel like this is all par for the course.
Yeah. I mean, my gosh, how many times have they tried to do something with the Terminator franchise?
That's another one too. That one hasn't been as successful as others, but you know, you're just jumping around from timelines to timelines, and you know, as a real big comic book fan, you should be used to continuity meaning nothing.
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
Take the story for what it is. If they say it's a sequel to this, great. If it includes that stuff, fine. Like for me, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm seated for a good film from start to finish. I don't really care what comes, you know, before or after. I'll judge that for what it is, because
I'll say this, and this is not controversial, and it shouldn't be taken that way, but I will say, I mean, I'm just in response to what Dwayne Johnson said about the former regime at Warner Brothers not wanting to do Superman with Cavill. But there's a new regime there now. I get it. I get their apprehension from a business standpoint, because he would, and it's a lot of their own doing, because because they made BVS and not Man of Steel 2. But I mean, that iteration of Superman just didn't resonate with the general audience, and even Man of Steel underperformed. And I say that as someone who borderline loves Man of Steel. I defended Man of Steel when it came out. You know, there were a lot of people who were bitching about Man of Steel in 2013 when it came out, and I defended the film, and I defended the creative and narrative decisions that they made. So, but I get why they were apprehensive of going back to something that wasn't successful before.
Yeah, it made sense to me. As much as I loved Cavill in the role, you know, I understood it from, you know, a financial standpoint, a business standpoint. You know, I mean, to be honest, I would have taken Brandon Routh back as Superman in a different franchise. And eventually you get that in the CW, but like, it's up, you know, it just didn't hit. Like that version of Superman didn't hit, and it's a bummer. And you know, hopefully the next iteration does, whether it's Cavill or not, you know, and it seems to be Cavill.
Well, I hope it does well. I hope they find a filmmaker who really has a strong, someone like Matt Reeves, who has such a love for Batman and appreciation for the Batman mythos, Batman history, and Batman comic books, and
maybe
you know,
it's
something with
McCreary.
Superman that way.
I remember the rumors that McCreary, after he and Cavill did that Mission Impossible film, reached out, and their pitch was rejected. But maybe they could get a second chance for that.
I was about to say I think he was, and that might have been more with, they just didn't want to go with Cavill, because we know that, you know, at the time, than his pitch. But that's what I hope for. I just hope it's not just him showing up in cameos in various DC films.
I wouldn't want Superman to kind of turn into the Hulk, you know, over at Marvel. It seems like the Hulk just pops in other people's movies and shows now. And, you know, I think that's a character like Superman that deserves a live action solo film.
Okay.
Another
one. Let's get to what really matters here at Batman on Film. And that is Matt Reeves' The Batman Universe. And part of the article was this following blurb. They go through all the stuff that Pete talked about there regarding the other DC on Film stuff, Then it says, meanwhile in Gotham City, filmmaker Matt Reeves, is quietly making his own expansion plans. Reeves is developing a sequel to his The Batman, which grossed a respectable $770.8 million worldwide when it was released back in March. Already, a series spinoff focusing on Colin Farrell's Penguin is on its way to filming next year. So we know that the Penguin is about ready to roll here in the next few months. And it sounds, to quote Colin Farrell talking about it, it's tasty, he says.
Which is good. I want to eat some penguin.
Yes.
Can you eat a penguin?
God, I hope not.
I wonder what penguin tastes like.
I don't want to know. I don't want. Now you got that in my head. I don't want to think about it. They're too nice of characters. Too nice of animals.
So are deer,
apparently.
but people love venison.
I do not. I'm not a deer fan. All right. So we know the Penguin's coming, but Reeves is plotting more. Forrest Kitt writes, the filmmaker is meeting with writers and directors to build out movies. Yes, movies, not just series, which we've heard before. We've heard there's been scuttlebutt about maybe a Catwoman movie, some other spin-off movie from the Batman universe, focused on Batman's rogues gallery, both established and more obscure, with characters ranging from the Scarecrow to Clayface to Professor Pig. All those projects are in the very early stages of gestation. So I found that quite interesting. I'm very excited for that. I mean, expand this MFR and have the Batman universe, make it big as you want it to be. I had been hearing rumblings about Clayface before. If you did not know that, Pete, that maybe they were interested in doing the original incarnation, a take on the original version of Clayface, the Basil Karlo, failed actor, disgraced actor, master of disguise, who also kills people, going some along those lines, and that would fit in the Batman universe.
So no mud monster, huh?
No mud monster. And it's interesting to see Scarecrow mentioned and Professor Pig, which is ironic that because I just did an episode of the last episode of Batmanimation on Batman on Film. That podcast we talked about the first episode of Beware the Batman, where
what a great show.
Grant Morrison's Professor Pig creation from the comics was incorporated into that series. So what do you think?
I think I'm really excited to hear the names Clayface and Professor Pig, being that we've never seen them on film. Professor Pig made an appearance on Batwoman recently, season 3. We've seen the Scarecrow in the Nolanverse. Clayface is very interesting. I think he would fit in really well in what Reeves is doing. I grew up myself on the Matt Hagen version of Clayface, which was the Mud Monster, but that had elements of the Basil Karlo iteration as well, as Matt Hagen was a failed actor who tried to preserve his good looks, and it backfired. I think this character could really cause some havoc in this universe. A guy who can disguise himself and look like other people and change his appearance, can go out and commit a bunch of crimes and murders, and I could see why that would cause confusion. I could see why someone like the Penguin might be interested in hiring that man for his abilities and expertise. It makes sense having a thug on your payroll who can change who he looks. You can get away with a lot of bad stuff there. There's a lot of interesting things that can go on there. Scarecrow's interesting. I don't know what they would do with Scarecrow, how they would play it out. We've heard this Arkham show was a thing at one point. I don't know if they want to put the Scarecrow back in Arkham. That may remind too many people of Nolan, and a lot of people complain about that already. But it's just exciting to see this world expand. It's exciting to hear new names. Professor Pig could add a very interesting horror element to this franchise. Matt Reeves does have a history of horror movies under his belt. He's a whacked out dude who kills people in a pig mask. Like,
Yeah.
it's very creepy. We know, the Batman does take place around Halloween, so who knows how that would factor in. It could be a trend within those movies.
I don't know how
all
you
positive
would.
news.
I would say I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm not a creative. That's why I say fans, you stay over here and you just keep fanning and let creatives create. I go like, how do you do a whole movie around, the Basil Car? I mean, you probably could. You could make it a serial killer thriller of some sort. But I'm not going to try to create because I'm not
Just
a creative.
a murder mystery.
Murder
It could be a murder mystery.
What could you do with the Scarecrow as as a movie revolve around him? Professor Pig. I mean, there's all sorts. I guess, and they're probably, I would say, also just spitballing ideas. Like, okay, let's take a look. What could we do with, let's say, Professor Pig, or Scarecrow, which is an established character. Professor Pig isn't. Clayface. I mean, whoever they, Hush.
I mean, it sounds like
bring
post Batman, they were talking, well, do we want to do Penguin series? Do we want to do Catwoman series?
Yeah.
It was one or the other, and they picked one and they moved forward with it. So that, to me, that's kind of what they're doing.
I will say that I think the fact that Zoe Kravitz, her Selena Kyle Catwoman, leaves Gotham at the end of the Batman, is to go to Bloodhaven. She mentions if she ended up going there, but I mean that would be pretty kind of cool because it would fit with Batman comics. But there's a story about her to be told before she ends up coming back to Gotham, and maybe we see her, down the line in another Batman.
She does not have to be in the next movie.
Yeah. Yeah, because look, think about it. In the Batman, you got Joker, you got Catwoman, you got the Riddler, you got the Penguin, and
maybe he's telling us everything we need to know. He Reeves has a tendency to do that in ways that you don't really know. He's giving you all the answers. I mean, he was taking pictures of Batman 66 mannequins, and we just thought he was fanning out. Meanwhile, those three characters were all in the movie.
Yes, they were. So, the Arkham series is a great way to introduce characters, villains particularly, and others who could, Hugo Strange could be in the Arkham series, and then we end up seeing him.
I think it'd be pretty cool to see Hugo Strange, Scarecrow, and Professor Pig all just wreaking havoc within the patients of Arkham Asylum. You got three just maniacal people just wreaking havoc. That could be interesting. I don't know. Again, I'm just a fan throwing out horrible fan theories.
I don't know if we've had, and you can correct me, but I'm older than you. I don't remember if we've had a comic book character who's been, of course, we've had them, we've had comic book movies now since basically Superman 78 really started the modern era of that. But to build a whole universe of TV or streaming series, however you want to call it, cable, HBO Max, and film around one character like Batman. I think Batman's the one that can do it. I think if all of them, Batman is the one because he's got the greatest rogues gallery. He's got a great supporting cast, and I'm all for it. The more fleshed out they make the Batman universe,
that, and I feel like
happy,
more often than not, Batman's villains are grounded. It's not, you don't need a whole lot of special effects, and usually sometimes TV, the budgets are restricted, but these streaming shows seem to have unlimited budgets sometimes. Like I believe that Lord of the Rings show is pretty crazy expensive. So it all depends on what they want to make. But again, I'm excited. Everything sounds great, but I know not all of this is going to be made too.
Yeah. I would caution to say, just because Scarecrow was mentioned or Clayface was mentioned and Professor Pig doesn't mean we're getting a Clayface movie. We're getting a
No.
Professor Pig movie. It means, like I said, there's probably, I'm sure, I'm almost 100% positive that they're kicking around other villains, Batman villains as well. You know,
I mean, Reeves could watch a movie and get inspired. You know, like what was it, the Third Man that he watched that kind of helped him inspire the Batman. Like he could wake up tomorrow and something else could inspire him, and he could have a brand new idea.
yeah,
You know, like it could change. I'm sure that's why it's in development. He's developing his story and his plan and this universe, and you know, who knows what can happen tomorrow. But this is just, you know, just enjoy it while it lasts, because who knows what negative thing will come out.
it also it's nice to know that the actors he has cast who are involved with this are really passionate about the Batman universe and doing more. I mean, Robert Pattinson nerds out every time he talks about Batman and the future, and it's like, you know, he's said basically, I'll play Batman as long as Reeves makes the movies. And like, watch Colin Farrell talk about the Penguin.
Yeah,
You know, playing the Penguin in the Batman, and him talking about the TV series, or the Penguin TV series that's coming.
that's why he's so excited for the series, because he says
Yeah.
he didn't get enough. He did not have enough screen time in the movie. He just, he loves he loved playing the character so much. He wanted more, and you know, he's going to get an extra at least 8 hours for us.
Yeah. So I will say this was a positive for fans of DC. Let's hope that things turn out better than they've had every time we've had a reset previously. It's not like DC on film has been an epic failure. It has not done, it never had a universe like they built with the MCU. And that I'm not going to get on the tangent about the different, and nor should they. That never should have been the goal. The DC universe and Marvel universe are very different historically. They should be treated as such with whatever medium, whether it's comic book, film, whatever. And it's not like I said, that it hasn't been just a complete mess. I mean, you've had Joker, you've had Aquaman, you've had Wonder Woman was a success, the Batman was a success, the Suicide Squad didn't do awesome at the box office, and that was because of came out the tail end of COVID, and the fact that Warner Brothers released all those films same day on HBO Max is going into the theater. But it has become kind of a cult classic type thing. People found it on HBO Max. People found it on home video. The Peacemaker was a huge hit for HBO Max. So it's not like they can't make good DC movies when they do it the right way, you know?
I agree. I mean, there have been some misses, but there have been some hits. I mean, that seems to be what the movie business is. Every studio has hits and misses.
Yeah.
So
you get like I said, get a filmmaker who has a passion and a vision for the character, and let him do his thing. You know, it tends to pay off more times than not.
yeah, no, I agree.
I will defend that, even if it's something I'd end up not liking. I'd rather that than producer-driven, cookie-cutter type movies that have to fit into this way bigger narrative and story across different characters.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes the money talks, and, you know, like they say about the NFL, it's a copycat league. Hollywood is a copycat business, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to have a superhero franchise. You know, whenever they make movies about the end of the world, 3 studios do it. So
yeah, for sure.
It is what it is. But, you know, just go there, enjoy it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. And, you know, as long as they keep making them.
Yeah.
You know, we shouldn't complain until this genre goes the way of the Western. That's all we should complain about, to be honest. And that's really kind of like my only concern. I don't want DC to finally get it all together and then no one care about superhero movies, because that would be the ultimate bummer, because I do think they have the better overall group of characters, and it would be a shame for them to finally, get this thing, right the ship, and have no one care about the genre anymore, because you don't see westerns anymore. They're few and far between these days.
Okay, so speaking of DC having a better group of characters, Aquaman. What is this Aquaman versus Namor, the Submariner thing going on here?
We on Straight Outta Gotham podcast that I co-host with the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman, we were just talking about Namor's let's say debut in the MCU, and I might have misspoke. I and the internet did what it did. It called me a jackass because I said something. So I appreciate everyone who wants to take shots at me and isn't brave enough to have their own podcast. But yeah, I mean, I might have, I probably said, I did say that Namor was just as popular as Aquaman. It felt that way for me growing up, mostly because of my time at the Kendall Park roller rink and the Spider-Man arcade game. Namor was the most popular character at the time, and no one was ever talking about Aquaman. And during the 90s, I thought that Namor was definitely, it felt that Namor was definitely the cooler version of the water-based superheroes. So I went on my podcast, I talked about some things, and nobody agreed with me, and the rest is history.
Say, just historically, and with the general audience, I would say Aquaman is more well known. Now, I'm not going to get into which character, just the characterization is more cool. I think there's been some cool characterizations of Aquaman in the comics.
Oh, definitely. Peter David stands out. I mean,
yeah,
Momoa
I was about to
has
mention
totally...
Peter David. I liked it when he had that hook.
Yep, I think that happened in issue 2 of Peter David's run. And Momoa has changed the perception of Aquaman completely. I mean, before Momoa, he was a running gag on Robot Chicken, but again, he was featured on Robot Chicken. Aquaman's been around for a while. He's had his own animated show. Namor's appeared on the Fantastic Four animated show. He's appeared in some video games, and now he's going to probably take off like Groot because of the brand.
I know who Namor was. I know who the Submariner was. I don't think, like, I could show that to announcer Rachel, like, who's this? She'd have no idea who that is. I think if you show the picture, they go, "Oh, that's Mr. Spock from freaking Star Trek."
That's fair enough. I was basing it off of personal experience amongst kids my age who are not comic book readers, but just children growing up. That was my personal experience off of it. But
let me ask you this. Okay, I
got thick skin, so come at me, guys.
I will say, since we get so much that Marvel did this, MCU did this before DC. We can say, okay, besides the fact that I don't care what you say about Iron Man. No, Marvel does not, and this is not, I'm not trying to shit on Marvel, okay? I'm not, so don't think that. But Marvel does not have a Batman, which is probably, unless you want to count, Spider-Man is up there. I'm talking about an iconic, beloved character amongst the mainstream. I think you would, if I say there were two, it would be Batman, Spider-Man, but they don't have a character like Batman. They would never take, they wouldn't do the Iron Man for Marvel, Disney, like we did the Batman, have it be its own standalone thing. So,
and that's a horrible thing for Iron Man fans, in my opinion.
Yes. And also, we can say that DC did the King of Atlantis first on screen and was a huge success, and now we get the Marvel version of essentially they're almost like
he's not actually from Atlantis in the movie.
He's from so they've changed that for the film, right?
And this isn't the first time that Marvel has done this. They changed Captain Marvel, Eric Holzman's favorite movie, to differentiate it from Green Lantern. And I also think that they did Civil War to react to BVS. Like I feel like they react a lot to each other, and who did what first. So,
but
it's interesting.
He's still going to end up being like Aquaman to a certain extent. I think Namor can fly and shit, can he?
Namor is more of a dick.
Yeah.
He's more of a jerk than Aquaman. Aquaman is definitely he's more of like a beloved king, whereas Namor is kind of more of a feared king, I guess.
Yeah.
Not by his people, but by the rest of the world. You know, Namor looks out for Atlantis first, and that's all that matters to him. And he's also got a soft spot for Sue Storm, so he's trying to steal other guys' wives. He's not exactly the most wholesome person, and he's kind of a badass. I mean, Namor's a badass. He always was, in my opinion.
I'm going to say,
and the Submariner is a really cool name. I gotta admit, I love that name.
yes, the Submariner. Lest we forget, though, the greatest incarnation of the King of Atlantis is DC, and it's from Batman the Brave and the Bold. It's just outrageous. Outrageous. If you haven't seen the Aquaman Song of Heroism from Batman the Brave and the Bold, you're doing yourself an injustice.
That's a James Tucker joint. He produced that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He might have directed it.
He did. All right.
Brilliant name, that James Tucker.
That will do it for this episode of the Batman on Film Social Hour. And Pete, do what you do best. Plug.
You can follow me on. You could follow me on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite platform bureau at Pete Illustrated. You can follow podcast number 1. That's a news-based podcast that I co-host with the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman, at straight_O_G. That's straight out of Gotham. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook fan page. Consider joining both. If you like what goes on in BOF, you're going to like what we do as well. You can check out podcast number 2, the Italian Spider-Man Coalition podcast. I co-host that with Wrigley Field's finest, Nicholas and Nico Caruso. Just a couple of guys talking Spider-Man. Both shows have episodes that have dropped this weekend, so please check them out. Check out at Team Yellow Oval as we celebrate the return of Michael Keaton in The Flash and the Oval. It's a great time. Todd McFarlane's making a bunch of toys from that movie, and we're all going to go Keaton crazy. So Ovals are going to take over the world. I'm always on monthly. I'm on Ryan Lauer's The Batman Book Club. Make sure you check that out as Lauer and I review every Batman title from the month. So that's a daunting task, but we do it. I've got tons of content on BatmanOnFilm.com and Batman on Film YouTube, from toy reviews to comic book reviews to interviews with Michael Uslan, Tara Strong, and others. So I'm all over the place, all over the internet. And, I'd love for everyone to chime in on the Aquaman Namor debate, because what good is the internet if we're not arguing with each other?
I know the answer to this. What new addition to your Batman collection have you recently obtained? Well, besides Man Bat, I've seen
Man
that.
Bat. Okay, I've gotten this amazing Batman the Animated Series 30th anniversary piece from McFarlane Toys, which mimics the end of the opening sequence with lights. And I got to tell you, if you guys haven't spent the $40 to $50 on this thing, it's absolutely amazing. It's got an on-off switch. It's got a try-me switch so you don't burn out the batteries. It's really stunning. I love it more than the Batman Year 2 piece that he put out. It's very impressive.
Does it make a thunder sound?
It doesn't make any thunder sounds. It just lights up. But I mean, come on, like, that's pretty impressive. The base.
Oh, it looks cool. I had the McFarlane, just the action figure. There's no difference in that, is there? There is. There's
some blue highlights, like kind of like a comic book. You know how they use the blue accent. So there's a little bit of a paint difference from the figure they sold solo. And for me personally, I passed on that figure because I bought the DC collectible version years ago of Batman the Animated Series. So, and then McFarlane made a Neil Adams version of this Batman style. So I had the yellow and light blue Batman. So when I saw the opportunity to buy this version with the display piece, it made sense. I'm sure somebody like Javi has like 4 of these.
It hasn't came in. I got the new Funko Pop Batman. It's kind of similar to that. It's on a gargoyle, and it lights up and makes a thunder sound. I haven't received it yet, but
that's been in my cart. I've been debating actually buying it though.
Yeah, I picked that up.
I won't tell Rachel.
So for me, for Batman on Film, all these shows, all the ones that Pete mentioned, this show, all the shows of Batman on Film are part of the Batman Podcast Network. You can just go to Batman on Film proper, the website. You'll find the logo or the podcast drop-down box. You can check out those shows there, so please do so. If you want to support Batman on Film, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film, patreon.com/Batman on Film. And if you'd like to advertise on BOF, advertisecast.com, advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. And announcer Rachel will have some more plugs. That's all I got. Pete, thanks for jumping on this morning. Good luck to the Yankees. I'm actually going to turn that on since it's 3:00 in the afternoon, and so nothing else on. And I'll watch it.
I will be taking shots of Pepto hourly.
All right.
Because of all the heartburn.
We just don't want the garbage can bangers.
I tell you, if
again.
it ends up being a Houston and Philadelphia World Series, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'll have to root for the Phillies, I guess. I don't really want to. It's a little too close to home for me.
You're in different leagues, right? That's AL and NL. Phillies.
Philadelphia kind of takes over South. New Jersey's an interesting state. It's 50-50 Philadelphia and New York. It's unlike any other state in the country, to be honest with you. It's got a bit of an identity complex when it comes to sports.
I got it. I got you. All right. So now it's Rachel will take us out. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the BOF Social Hour, Jett's official vlog and podcast on Batman on Film. Follow Jett on Twitter @Batman on Film. Follow the BOF newsfeed on Twitter @The Batman on Film. For Jett and everyone at BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film, established in 1998.